Back in 2002, when Porsche launched the Cayenne, the world said, "What the f***?" More than a decade later, the Cayenne adds up to about half of Porsche's sales worldwide. No wonder now the Germans decided to launch a smaller SUV, the Macan, which apparently means tiger in Indonesian. In my reviews, I don't like to talk about the car's looks. You can see it and make up your own mind. However, the Macan looks so good in real life. You guys watch and I'll just get me a box of tissues. You can open the boot with a button on the key fob or with a button under the wiper, and this thing, that's asking for trouble. The boot is a decent 500 liters. Instead of a spare, you get a repair kit, but come on, which Porsche owner changes his own tires? Even when you see guys racing, there's always a couple of blokes around the paddock changing wheels. I like the cargo space arrangement system. Shame there's only one hook, and what is this? Wouldn't it be cheaper to make a decent boot lining rather than add this electric tailgate mechanism? It's nothing special in the back here either. Now, although this seat will slide forward a couple of centimeters when I turn the ignition, let's now assume that it's set for a 6-footer, and well, I don't have much space left. Also, headroom is not very good, so if you're planning to drive anyone taller in the back here, I suggest you cross the panoramic sunroof of the options list, and the middle seat, I suppose it's only good for kids. It's much more interesting in the front. The dials resemble those from older Porsche models, even if there are now only 3 instead of 5. There's a speedo on the left, which is too small to read the speed. Then there's a big rev meter in the middle with a digital speedo, which thankfully you can read. And there's a multifunction display on the right. The display is easy to operate. There's a single knob for that on the steering wheel. The infotainment system is also relatively easy to use. It's a logical combination of a touchscreen and physical buttons, even if the buttons are too small. But this keyboard around the gear shifter is an example of bad interior car design, especially when we're talking about a sports car. There are too many buttons, they're illegible, and to make things worse, the empty spaces always remind you which options you couldn't afford. I'm surprised Porsche did not think of something more intuitive, especially since the brand is very attached to its motorsports tradition. Ignition on the wrong side, for example, goes back to the early Le Mans days when drivers had to run to their cars. Porsche thought you could take off quicker when you turned the ignition with one hand and put the car in gear with the other. The first time I heard about Porsche Macan, I thought, it's gonna be a pimped up Audi Q5. Boy, was I wrong. Now, the Porsche cockpit does help you feel like in a sports car, but without good reaction of the steering, of the gas pedal, and without good brakes, you wouldn't have that effect. Behind the wheel of a Macan, I feel like a 5-year-old that just got a really cool Matchbox car for Christmas. Let me remind the younger viewers that there once was a time that this was the coolest thing you could get for Christmas. Okay, some numbers then. Under the bonnet of the Macan S is a 3-liter V6 producing 340 horsepower and 460 Nm of torque. The 0 to 100 km/h time is 5.4 seconds. But all these numbers are meaningless without the steering that makes me feel like I am drawing the road ahead of me. The brakes are so sharp that in slow traffic you really have to watch it so that you don't stop the car. With this much power, the reaction to the gas pedal can be a bit slower, and in a normal mode, it's not the fastest. However, there is a sport button here, and if I press it, the Macan S goes ballistic. Oh yes, yeah. Now, Let's go back to my review here. Of course, the gearbox is a 7-speed PDK, or Porsche Doppelkupplungsgetriebe. In English, it simply means a double-clutch gearbox. Yes, it's quick, but some sort of PDK derivative, or some sort of double-clutch gearbox, it's in so many cars these days, you know, it doesn't impress me much, as Shania Twain would say. The gearing is long, very long in fact. In 7th gear at 3000 RPM, you're doing about 180 kilometers per hour. Of course, I know this from tests performed on a closed circuit. On the motorway, doing legal speeds, you'll have around maybe 2000 and a bit RPM. This example is not equipped with a sports exhaust, but from the outside it sounds pretty good, without being vulgar at the same time. There is nothing more annoying than some douchebag showing off his loud exhaust at the traffic lights. We get it, your parents are rich. Also inside, the sound is rather discreet. As I mentioned before, the Macan is great to drive in the bends. This car is equipped with pneumatic suspension, which can be lowered and stiffened. It also has all-wheel drive, which is biased towards the rear for most of the time, but in tighter bends, some of the torque goes to the front wheels, which makes the car turn in better. It's a brilliant car. If I didn't try it, I would not believe this is a 1900 kilogram SUV. So, is there anything wrong with it? Well, theoretically you can take the Macan off-road, but judging by the damaged element underneath the front bumper, it's something you should avoid if you can. Moreover, the Macan S is thirsty. Porsche promises 11.5 liters of petrol per 100 kilometers in the city and around 7.5 in extra-urban cycle. Prepare for 16 in the city and 11 out of the city. With the standard 60-liter fuel tank, you may be forced to visit the petrol station too often. Better go for the optional 75-liter one. The price. Prices of the Macan S start at around 58,000 euros, which is about 8,000 euros more than the less practical and slower Boxster. Of course, I'm talking here about the regular Boxster, not the Boxster S. Add a few extras though, and you'll end up with a 100 grand car. Porsche Macan is in a comfortable situation because it doesn't have direct competition. Okay, there may be cars of similar size and offering similar levels of prestige. However, none of them is as fun to drive as this car. Subscribe to my channel by clicking the logo in the upper right corner. New reviews every Friday, and also watch my other reviews by clicking somewhere around here. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Google+. You'll find all the links in the description below. And now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.